You are standing on cracked tan earth before sunrise. The air smells like dust grass and distant rain. A lonely acacia tree leans against an orange sky. And under your bare feet, Africa is slowly tearing open. This is the Great Rift Valley of East Africa. It looks like a landscape of cliffs, lakes, volcanoes, dry plains, and green strips of life. But for your ancestors, it was not scenery. It was pressure. It was danger. It was opportunity. What happens to a body when the world underneath it refuses to stay still? East Africa is often called the Cradle of Humankind. That phrase can sound simple, as if one valley gave birth to every human ancestor like a single mother in a single place. The real story is stranger. Africa is where the human line first evolved, and East Africa is one of the places where the ground, the climate, and the fossil record all came together in a way that preserved the evidence. A cradle is not just where a baby begins, it is where the story can still be found. To understand why, start with the ground. The East African Rift is a huge crack system where Earth's crust is pulling apart. The U.S. Geological Survey describes it as a continental rift, stretching thousands of kilometers from the Afar region near the Horn of Africa down toward Mozambique. A rift is a place where the crust stretches, breaks, sinks, and sometimes fills with lava lakes and sediment. In plain English, the land was not just sitting there, it was being torn, lifted, flooded, buried, and reopened. That matters because fossils need luck. Bones left on the surface usually vanish, teeth scatter, rain hyenas, insects, and time erase almost everything. But rift valleys create basins, which are low places where mud, volcanic ash, and lake sediments pile up. Sediment means layers of material that bury the past. Volcanic ash can later be dated because its minerals keep a chemical clock. So East Africa did not only shape ancient lives, it preserved them. This is why names like Hadar, Laetoli, Olduvai, Gorge, Turkana, Awash, and Olorgesailie keep appearing in the human story. They are not magical places, they are windows. At Hadar in Ethiopia, Donald Johanson and Tom Gray found the famous skeleton called Lucy in 1974. Lucy belonged to Australopithecus afarensis, a small-brained, upright walking human relative that lived about 3.2 million years ago. Australopithecus means southern ape, but the name can mislead you. Lucy was not a modern ape. She was a hominin, meaning a member of the human side of the family after the split from the chimpanzee line. Her brain was small, her body was short, but her pelvis, legs, and knees told a shocking story. She walked upright before your ancestors had large brains. What does that do to the old idea that intelligence came first? Then look south to Laetoli in Tanzania. There, Mary Leakey's team found footprints pressed into wet volcanic ash and sealed by later ash. The trail is about 3.6 million years old. The footprints show a big toe lined up with the others and a heel-to-toe walking pattern. Bipedalism means walking on two legs, and these prints show that the habit was already deep in your family story. Imagine those feet. No shoes, no paved path. Just damp ash, a volcano nearby, and small upright bodies crossing an ancient landscape before anyone knew there would be a word called human. The question is why? For a long time, the easy answer was savanna. Forests shrank, grasslands spread, and your ancestors had to come down from the trees. That is the classic savanna story. It is powerful, it is visual, but it is too neat. The real Rift Valley was not a simple switch from rainforest to endless grass. It was a shifting mosaic. A mosaic is a picture made from many small pieces, and ancient East Africa was made from woodland, bushland, grassland, lake, edge river forest, volcanic plain, and dry open country. One valley could hold shade water, predators, fruit tubers, carcasses, and grass all within walking distance. Then the climate could change again. What kind of animal survives a world like that? Not always the strongest, not always the fastest, the most adaptable. Rick Potts of the Smithsonian Human Origins Program has argued for a variability selection idea. Variability means changeability, and the idea is that many human traits may have been favored not by one stable environment, but by repeated environmental instability. In plain English, your ancestors were not only adapting to savanna, they were adapting to surprise. This is where climate enters the story. As East Africa lifted and split, mountains and highlands altered wind, rain, and drainage. Lakes appeared and vanished. Rivers shifted course. Wet periods could bring expanded water and green corridors. Dry periods could expose dust, salt grass, and dead shorelines. The world did not give your ancestors one problem to solve. It kept changing the question. Thur Serling and colleagues published a major study in Nature in 2011 using ancient soils from the Awash and Omo Turkana basins. Ancient soils are called paleosols, which simply means old soils turned into part of the rock record. By measuring carbon isotopes, tiny chemical signatures linked to different kinds of plants, the team estimated how much woody cover existed around hominin sites. Across 1,300 paleosols, many sites showed relatively open habitats, often with less than 40% woody cover. That does not mean a flat, empty grassland. It means enough openness to matter. Enough gaps between trees to make walking useful, enough distance between food patches to reward efficient movement, enough danger in the open to reward watching, carrying, sharing, planning, and remembering. Can a changing landscape train a body without anyone teaching it? Picture an early morning in the rift. Your ancestor wakes under trees near a seasonal stream. The night has been cold. Somewhere beyond the brush, a hyena laughs. Nearby, another small group moves toward the lake edge where birds rise in a noisy cloud. The forest is not gone, but it is broken. Fruit may be nearby in one season and absent in another. Roots may hide under hard ground. A carcass may lie beyond the shade, guarded by vultures and watched by cats. Standing upright helps in small ways first. It lets the eyes look over grass. It frees the hands to carry food, infant stones, or branches. It saves energy during slow travel across open ground. None of this requires a sudden, heroic leap. Evolution usually works through tiny advantages repeated for countless generations. A body that walks a little better reaches water. A hand that grips a stone a little better cracks bone or cuts meat. A mind that remembers a dry season refuge helps a child survive. Small differences become ancestors. At Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, Louis and Mary Leakey helped reveal another piece of this story. Olduvai is a rift basin layered with ash lake beds, bones, and tools. Homo habilis was first discovered there in the 1960s, and its name means handy human. That name reflects the early association with stone tools, though later discoveries show stone tool-making is older and more complicated than one species. Still, Olduvai matters because it shows ancient relatives interacting with a changing world through technology. A sharp flake is not just a rock, it is a solution you can carry. This is one of the Rift Valley's great lessons. Your ancestors did not survive because the environment became easy. They survived because the environment became uneven. A lake shore could offer fish reeds eggs, and water then shrink into cracked mud. A woodland could shelter fruit, then dry into thorn. Open grass could expose your body to heat, and predators then reveal carcasses, seeds, grazing animals, and paths. Every benefit had a risk. Every refuge could become a trap. So the cradle of humankind was not soft. It rocked. It cracked. It burned with volcanoes and dried under hard sun. A cradle normally means comfort, but this cradle shook your ancestors awake. It forced bodies to balance between trees and ground, between memory and hunger, between fear and curiosity. The Rift Valley did not hand out humanity as a gift. It tested flexible bodies until some lineages vanished and others changed. That is the counterintuitive twist. East Africa may look central in human evolution partly because it was important to ancient life and partly because it was excellent at preserving ancient life. The fossil record is not a perfect map of where every ancestor lived. It is a map of where bones happened to survive, where sediments buried them, where erosion revealed them, and where researchers searched. The cradle is both a birthplace and an archive. This makes the story more interesting, not less. Your ancestors were not marching in a straight line from ape to human across a movie screen savanna. They were branching, failing, adapting, and overlapping. Around 2 million years ago, several human relatives shared East African landscapes including Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Paranthropus, Boisei, and others. Some had powerful jaws, some had larger brains, some used tools, some vanished. your story is not a ladder. It is a tangled bush growing out of unstable ground. Now bring that mirror closer. Your body still carries Rift Valley lessons. Your feet are built for upright travel. Your eyes scan horizons. Your hands reach, hold, make, and carry. Your brain dislikes uncertainty but is unusually good at imagining tomorrow. Hunger weather, social trust, and changing landscapes shaped ancient nervous systems long before alarms, road screens, and refrigerators existed. Why does your mind rehearse problems that have not happened yet? Because for your ancestors, tomorrow's dry river or missing fruit tree could decide who survived. Modern life hides the Rift Valley under concrete. Water comes from a tap. Food waits in stores. A phone tells you the weather before the sky does. But the old body is still there, built by landscapes that shifted beneath it. When plans change and your brain becomes alert, that is not weakness. It is an ancient survival system waking up. When open space makes you scan the distance, when firelight feels calming when walking, helps you think old East Africa is still speaking through your bones. So why is East Africa called the Cradle of Humankind? Because the human line first evolved in Africa. Because the Great Rift Valley created the lake's ash sediments and exposed layers that preserved deep chapters of that story. Because changing climates turned closed forests into patchier, more open worlds, and those worlds rewarded bodies and minds that could adapt. But most of all, because this place teaches that humanity did not begin in comfort. It began in movement. It began in uncertainty. It began with small, upright figures crossing broken ground, not knowing that their footprints would outlast the volcano that buried them. You're standing on cracked, tan earth before sunrise. The air smells like dust grass and distant rain, and under your bare feet, the ground is not empty. It is the slow, cracking doorway where your story learned to stand.